Hello amigos. Now the cool part of Intersectional Observer starts. In this video we are going to write an image component. The component is smart enough not to download any image whenever it is loaded onto the page. It will download the image right at the time when we want, when the image element is actually coming into the viewport. This way we can reduce the extra download of so many image that is needed, uh, especially those footer image when the user never goes. How to do that? So first let's see a quick demo. So I have the same similar image, similar HTML as from the previous session, a very big div. If I scroll down, you can see that it was a placeholder image. It's kind of a blue image. It's only after a while that the actual image is swapped, and I'm doing that at runtime. So let's go here. Look at this blue, and then it changes. Similarly, blue, and then it changes. Right? These are very heavy images purposefully so that we can see this transition going on. Uh, how to go about coding? I have with me. Let me close this thing. So here I have a plain React application, nothing fancy about it. I have deleted unnecessary images, and then I have my image folder. So let's go ahead and write some code. So the first thing we need to do is to create our component. Let's go ahead, name it as components, and then within this I would write a new component. Let's call it lazy load image.jsx. Okay, RFC. What it's gonna take? It's gonna take two parameters: the source of the image and if there is any alternate text or not. So, what do we need to do? What do we need to render in the end? What we need to do is actually I'm going to render it like this. So I have my div. It's an image. Alt is alt. Ref and image node we will cover in a minute. And similarly src image we will cover in a minute, right? So what I'm going to do is to first default it to my placeholder. So for that I can do is to use a state variable. Let's call it image src, and yeah, so far so good. Let's assume we have written already all this code. This component is already hunky-dory. How are we going to consume it? Because then that will help us to put this into broader perspective. If I go to app.js, let's import it first, the bad boy, from components lazy load. I don't know if it was default or not. I heard it on Syntax podcast that apparently it's a good idea not to by default don't export the defaults, because they can be renamed from the calling side, so I can name it anything. Secondly, yeah, it's then you have one which is default and others which are not default, and others have to go into brackets. So it's more concise if you can just put everything in a bracket. It's more of it's a good habit, and I tend to agree with that thought. So, but for the time being, I'm writing a lazy component, so I'm lazy. I'll put lazy load image over there. Let's go ahead and define an array for all the images which I would like to show. Uh, that's the array I have. And now what am I going to do? What I would like to do over here is to, of course, show my very big div first of all, like this. And then I would say, you know what, array images dot map, just show me all these images, lazy load them whenever wherever I want them to be. So let's call it image src, and then I also have the index. I need the index because of the key requirement of React. So let's go to over here and let me say lazy load an image. Yes, the src attribute is same as image src, and the key is, let's put it, index. Oh, did I close? Yeah, I need to close this thing. Looks okay. Let's save it. Does it compile? It's still thinking a lot. You know what? Let's go ahead, since I'm not doing anything as of now. Just to see that the whole plumbing thing is working fine, I can simply set this. Just print me the the placeholder itself, and then I will worry about modifying it. So if I see this, okay, I need to change my CSS, add some big stuff over there. Uh, let's go ahead, remove this thing, paste it. It's a standard, it's standard CSS, just nothing major to be discussed. Let's go here, and now that it is my images. Yeah, so it's loading all the placeholder images. Our job is to write the rest. So let's go ahead, get the ship rolling. Okay, pretty empty now. What do I want over here? I need to be able to figure out when I need to first register my observer uh, to figure out when the element is getting loaded. So that's first thing. Uh, and the moment I figure that out, I need to change the URL. So let's create one more entry for the final URL for the image. Um, let's call it entry here, right? The idea is, as soon as element enters, my state variable entry changes from false to true, and the moment it turns to true, I set my image src to the actual src and not the placeholder, and then everything falls into place. So something like this to an effect. So I have a use effect hook. That's the function. What am I doing is that if my entry is set to true, let's call it IO entry to differentiate it between the observables entry. If my intersectional observer at any time is set to true, then just change the image src. And because I'm changing the image src, the component will remount, and then image src will be updated, because this time it's coming from the actual component and not the placeholder. Right. So that was first thing. The other thing we need to do is, of course, to write our intersectional observers. So the code is pretty straightforward. We already discussed the API. Please have a look at my other video. The link is in description. So let's call our observer, and then we can call it new window dot intersectional observer. Yes, it's this guy. And what does it want? It wants, the first is an array for my entry. That's a function where it is asking me, hey, it's a callback. What do you want me to do? What I wanted to do is to first console.log the entry for me, please, so that I see what the hell is going on. and then I say entry dot intersectional ratio if it is greater than 0. So that means some percentage of it is already available. Then please update the entry or visibility, or it's about to enter variable to true. Um, yes, yes. Okay. Uh, and so just to reiterate, this code executes as soon as I get my entry to be greater than 0. Update entry is set to true. This variable is set to true. And if this variable is set to true, again, a component remounts and I take up the new one. So if everything went okay, I was expecting my application to work, but as you can see, it does not. I still only get the placeholder. So why was that the case? And the code looked okay. The problem is because I'm stupid. I forgot to attach this observer with something. Remember observer.observe? It needs to know, hey, okay, you want me to look at something, but what the hell? What is it? So somehow I need to connect this to this guy. And as we know, this is JSX, so it's not that easy that I can simply specify the value. So what I can do is to create a reference. Uh, in short, it's a React pointer to the actual DOM elements. So let's go ahead and create a reference. The syntax is like this. That's my image node. It's a function provided to us by React. So let's go ahead and we declare it. And now what I'm going to do is to say, hey, listen, uh, this image should actually be pointed to by image node variable. Remember that like use state and use effect, image the like use state, the references are persisted across multiple renders. So these are sort of, think of it as state variables, state bags. You can put whatever you want, integer, boolean, string, whatever you want, with the additional benefit that they will persist across the renders, and the change in their value will not cause a re-render, as is the case with the state variables, use state, props slash variables, whatever you call them. Um, so now I have a pointer to my image node. What I need to do is to say, can you go ahead and start listening to something? And the way to do that is, of course, to use a use effect, because it's it's a side effect, right? So what I can do from here is to say, whenever I'm going to return it, you say current observer dot disconnect. Let me do this. That, hey guys, please stop listening. This should work. What is the changing criteria? What is for this component? When should use effect be called? Again and again, I would say whenever the entry thing changes. So if I do this, let's see if it worked or not. H. So let's go over here, F12. If I go down and it starts loading. Pretty nice. And I also have my intersectional observers over there. But as you can see, there is a problem. The problem is that these are getting fired even after I leave the image. I'm still getting the event. It's not good. That's not really good. So what can be done? Though I'm not downloading it because it's already downloaded and React is caching it. But let's not stop. Why, basically? I'm curious why, if I already did disconnect, did it not work? The reason for that is very obvious, because this is a return function and this will get executed only on unmount of the component, image component. This tripped me a bit. So what I need to do is not to disconnect only on unmount. I also need to figure out if it is already um, mounted, then just dismount the second time it happens. It's pretty straightforward. I could just simply say if something like this, if my entry has already been set, or rather, if it is not set, then please go ahead and set it for me. Otherwise, just disconnect. Let's see if this thing works. Now I have covered both the cases. Once the component unmounts, and the second time uh, when the IO intersectional observer event fires. So these are my initial ones, and I get fired. Pretty nice, and it works. Great, 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 great. So my lazy loading thingy is working fine, but there's still one deep flaw in it. The problem is I'm using one intersectional observer for one image. Okay, I could do so because resources are not that costly anymore on in IT world, but ideally, because remember, I one observer can watch multiple um, events, intersectional events. So wouldn't it be nice if I could somehow use the same observer but for all my images? And the way to do that is pretty simple. What I could do is to have this observer in some kind of a use ref within. So this, just like the image node becomes a reference, it's an object which I can get anytime in future I want. So if I do this, then I have only one instance. So observer will not be created multiple times. But the problem is then I need to modify my code a bit. For me, the let's call it observer in reference. If I call it this, in that case, my actual observer over here would not be observer, it would be something like constant current, let's call it, because reference dot current is your value. Let's call it current observer, and then we destructure it from the observer in reference, this guy. I have a current observer, do this, do this, do this, and of course, in the end, we need to remove this. And now what we have is one component, one observer watching all my images. So let's go ahead and add use ref here. Where was use ref? Use it, where find it. Let's copy it here, and voila, it is. Of course, nothing changes in the code from the UI perspective, but I thought it was a good way to. It's a better way to write code, and that's what I like about JavaScript. So I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Please put in a comment discussing any question you have or any suggestions. It would mean a lot to me. Till the next time, keep coding, and I see you soon. Bye bye.